Shalom. In today's Reflect, we're going to be thinking about walking before the Lord. And we'll be looking at Leviticus chapter 26. And we're going to be asking the question here, importantly, is God setting the people up to fail? So you might want to pause the video now and just have a look at Leviticus 26. So let's dig further. I think this chapter can be divided into three sections. You've got the blessings of obedience, you have the punishments for disobedience, and then you have the restoration for the repentant. So God lays out in this passage about the people keeping his commands. In fact, in the Jewish lectionary readings in the synagogue, this particular parsha, this section, is called Bechukotai. This word chukot means my statutes. It's in my statutes from Leviticus 26 verse 3. But when we see this narrative as it unfolds and we read the chapter, we, I suppose, can't help but be struck by all the terrible things that God's going to bring on the people because of their disobedience. And so then that leads us to the question, is God harsh? Is God cruel? Are these things that God is setting before them beyond their capability to obey? Is God setting them up to fail? Well, let's dig further. And I think a way to help us understand this passage is to look at a complementary passage from the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. This was when the people were about to go into the promised land eventually after their desert wanderings, and God gave them this law, reorganized it and gave it a second go. But if you turn to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 11 to 16, you'll see something which I think will bring a highlight to the passage we've just read in Leviticus 26. Because God actually says to the people, "Now what I'm commanding you today is not too difficult for you or beyond your reach. It is not up in heaven so that you have to ask, who will ascend in heaven to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it? Nor is it beyond the sea so that you have to ask, who will cross the sea to get it and proclaim it to us so that we may obey it? No, the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart so that you may obey it." And then he says, "See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love the Lord your God and to walk in his ways. Keep his commandments, decrees and laws. Then you will live and increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess." Interesting, it says, now choose life. That's like a hint. It's like, there's all these things going on. Hint, choose life that you may live. But I think this passage in Deuteronomy, the Hebrew word is debarim. That's the name of the book. You know, these are the words, the debarim, the things, the words of God. These words bring a contrast back to our passage in Leviticus 26. So we can flick back and pull out some interesting information. So look at verse 3 of Leviticus 26. This is a key verse we'll be considering now. "If you follow my decrees and are careful to follow my commands," that's what God says, "I will send you all the good stuff. The rain, the blessing, the fruitfulness, the right relationships. But it's if you follow my statutes and keep my commands." So what do you hear when you hear the word keep? You know, God is saying to the people, okay, all this good stuff, I've definitely got it planned for you. But in order to have this good stuff, you've got to keep my commands. I think it can sound a bit harsh, can't it? It might have a legal connotation, you know, keep the law of the land or you'll go to prison. You might think of a driving analogy. keep to the road. Keep to the rules of the road, do the right thing. It might be a geography analogy. Is it when you see a sign and you're walking in the hills and it says a sign on someone's fence, private land, keep out. Or you might see a sign that says, keep to the path. It's quite harsh language, isn't it? Do this, keep this, keep this. But what's interesting is that the Hebrew is much more inclusive. There's a greater scope than just this harsh tone. Because when God is saying here, keep my commands, the Hebrew word is shamar. And shamar means to guard. It can mean observe, give heed to. You could also say, possibly, preserve. That's the original sense of this word, is preserve. Like in the book of Genesis, God says that he made mankind, he placed them in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to keep it. So Adam and Eve were put in that beautiful garden to cultivate it and then to maintain it, to tend it, to give heed to it, to preserve it, to look after it, to guard it. That is the essence of what God is saying here when he says, keep my commands. It's not a harsh thing. It does involve walking the line and doing the right thing, but the wider language is just one of cherishing, preserving and loving God's commands. And he promises that if the people keep, cherish, guard, preserve his commands, then they will enjoy the material as well as the spiritual and the relational prosperity in the land. Well, let's dig a little bit further and now have a look at this word walk. Okay, the Hebrew word halach. Okay, if you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands. That's what my version says. Maybe some of your version might say something similar, but actually the Hebrew is if you walk after my commands. If in my literal translation, if in my statutes you all shall walk, because it's a plural you, not a singular you, it's speaking to a group of people. If in my statutes you all shall walk, and my commands you all shall keep to do them, then you'll have peace, victory, fullness of life, etc. It's all based on this word walk. Now, my wife and I have got 3 children, growing up, fast as they are, now almost pretty much all teenagers now. But when they were young and when they were babies, that sort of toddler age, as I'm sure you might be able to relate to if you've got your own children or grandchildren, when they began to walk, they might have shuffled their bottom along the floor, they might have coasted along the furniture holding on and then falling down. And I'm glad they used to have those nappies on to cushion their fall. And eventually they begin to walk, don't they, young babies? But it's not just one day they're crawling and the next they're walking. It's a gradual process of learning to balance, look forward, move forward in the right direction. And it takes place one step after the other. Walking is not running. Walking is not standing still, but walking is a gradual process of moving forward. And I think this is what's behind this word here of obey or walking in my commands. And one of the earliest references, if not the first in the Bible, of the idea of walking before the Lord is Adam and his wife Eve. And they were walking with God, weren't they, in the cool of the day. They used to take a little wander through the fields, the flowers, the fruit bushes and the trees in the cool of the day. But when you think about walking before the Lord as they did, it wasn't just a literal thing. God comes, he walks, he does his 20 steps, and then he goes again. It wasn't about the actual movement. I think it was about the relational thing that happened when they walked. And it's the same with us today, when we perhaps walk on a woodland or a mountain path, like the picture here you see. We're walking together as a group, but actually we're relating, we're connecting with one another, we're opening up as we're journeying together. And I'm sure that that's what Adam and Eve did with God. As they were walking, they were having a heart connection. And I think that's what God is saying here in Leviticus 26. It's not just about obeying. Well, I've done this command, tick. I've done this command, I'll check that one off. I've completed this. I've obeyed in an external religious way. Sometimes the good things of God's word are hijacked by religion, aren't they? We can see that in the church. We can see that in Judaism. But God's not looking for an outward following. He's looking for an inward following. And I think that's the secret here in Leviticus. The secret to the blessing and the success is just taking one step at a time, walking with Yahweh Elohim, walking in the right habits, customs, the right heart attitude before God. Interestingly, there is a Jewish commentary called Sifra Bechokotai. The sages, the Jewish sages over the years have written commentaries and their thoughts on passages like Leviticus. And this is what it says. Thus the Holy One, blessed be he, destined to walk with the righteous in the Garden of Eden. He is in the time to come. They will see him and recoil before him, and he will say to them, I am like you. There's a notion in Judaism that heaven, as we would call it in Christian terms, will be just like the Garden of Eden. Paradise, Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, that is heaven. That's what eternity will be like. And it'll probably be very much like what we see in the book of Genesis. And these are the thoughts that do come out in the book of Revelation, aren't they? That there's beauty, there's peace, and God is amongst the people. There's a river of life, for example, and there's trees, just like there was back in the original Garden of Eden. And so the Jewish notion is, what's God going to be doing in eternity? He's going to be walking with his people. Exactly what we see in Leviticus 26. If in my statutes you all shall walk, partner with me, then you'll have the blessing, harvest, joy, peace, the fullness of life. So what's the meaning of this for us today? Well, walking with God essentially means embracing Jesus and living like him. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, the scriptures tell us we have fellowship with one another. Jesus, the light of the world, if we walk with him, we've got fellowship with him, an upward fellowship, and we've also got fellowship with one another. So there's a complete beauty of fellowship in the family of God. And I think in terms of the idea of walking that comes up in Leviticus 26, you could even go to Galatians 5. That's all about walking and being led in the Spirit. So in conclusion, I think actually that God is not setting up the people to fail in Leviticus 26. He's encouraging them to follow him with the heart, not with external legalism. And I think that's the same with us today. The call is to walk with God and to cherish God's word. Shalom.